Hello again, and welcome to the second podcast for ESLspot.com. I'm Sean Tyler, and today we're going to be talking about why I chose South Korea to go teach English in back in 2011. So number one, I found that South Korea, after a lot of research and looking at a lot of different countries, was the best paying compared to the cost of living. And what I mean by that is everything that you're going to pay for, your food, your transportation, the bills you're going to pay, that compared to how much any job there is going to pay you was great. In my first job, I made around $2,100 to $2,300 USD, and that was enough that I never felt like I needed to stay in and pinch pennies. I never stopped myself from eating out. I never stopped myself from really buying anything. I wasn't buying, I wasn't spending like $1,000 a month or like $2,000 a month on just useless stuff. But I had a good time. I went to whatever restaurant or club or activity that my friends were going to. I never felt like I needed to stay home and pay off a loan. Now, I did have friends that they had substantial student loans, and they definitely didn't go to some activities that we went to. But even those people with student loans, they still lived comfortably. The food is cheap, transportation is cheap. Really, if you're living like a Korean and not trying to shop at Costco to get your Western foods, like cheese, you're gonna live pretty comfortably. So that was a big reason for me picking South Korea. The second reason was technology. Technology is everywhere in South Korea. In fact, Seoul is known as a tech capital of the world. I mean, it's the land of Samsung and LG. It was I remember getting there and walking up to the apartments. My apartment had like an old style lock, but most apartments in Seoul will have like the key code lock, to where it's like a digital key code that you put in, and then almost every apartment has the camera to where you can see who's at your front door. So that blew my mind, because at the time I really hadn't seen many of those. Of course they were in America, but nobody really uses them here. So yeah, definitely the technology. Also, super fast internet for like nothing. I think my internet bill was like $45 a month, or 40. No, it was in the 20s. I think it was like $25 a month. It was somewhere in there, but it was incredibly fast internet. So that was awesome. Also, just a note, when compared to Japan, obviously Japan has a lot of technology as well, right? But when compared to Japan, it's a whole lot cheaper to live in South Korea. I still haven't been to Japan yet. It's on the bucket list. But all of my friends who've been have said that the transportation is really expensive. Food can get expensive. Just being in Japan can be expensive. You can make more money there, definitely, but like I said, the cost of living is higher. So South Korea is definitely a place to go if you want to be surrounded by technology, but also have like a reasonable cost of living. So number three, the people. The Korean people are incredibly friendly. They're very friendly, very welcoming. They want to help you. Most everybody. I mean, obviously you're going to run into people anywhere that are jerks. That's life. But on the whole, and for the most part, the South Korean people are really nice. I noticed everybody really trying to help anybody with anything. So yeah, definitely the people. I actually had a high school foreign exchange student from Korea, and that was my first exposure to people from Korea, really. And I was just blown away with how grateful he was and how helpful he was, and the stories he would tell me about South Korea and the people there. I don't know. I kind of fell in love with the idea of this country with all of these great people helping each other. So, but like I said, I mean, there's definitely people in every situation and in every country that, I don't know, will go against the grain and aren't as helpful as others. But yeah, the Korean people are extremely friendly. Number 4, South Korea is an awesome foot in Asia. And what I mean by that is if you want to travel around Asia, Japan, Hong Kong, China, Taiwan, Philippines, Malaysia, Vietnam, all around that region, Korea is a great base of operations, if you will. You can get there, and travel is relatively cheap. I'm compared, obviously, to if you're coming from Europe or Australia or America or Canada. And yes, Canada's a part of North America. I meant the United States when I say America. Yeah, travel's cheaper if you're in South Korea, and it gets you really close to the rest of Asia and Southeast Asia. Number 5, it's really safe. South Korea is one of the safest countries in the world, actually. Now, I'll have another podcast talking about the DMZ and the whole North Korea thing. But just a quick note on that. In the United States, our news, when North Korea does something scary, like a nuclear test or something, they blow it out of proportion. And we can't stop hearing about it for a couple days. So obviously, when you're in the United States, or if you're from the United States and you go to South Korea, one of your first questions to your co-teachers or the people there is, "Oh, what about North Korea? How do you feel about that? Or do you worry about that when you wake up in the morning?" And their response, and it blew me away, is always, "What? What are you talking about? North Korea? No, that's our little brother that just yells and screams every once in a while." The situation is worse than that. I know. However, that's kind of the attitude I noticed towards North Korea, like the daily attitude. They don't worry about it. And the more I lived there, the more I didn't think about it. So I don't know if that's blissful ignorance, but it's not a reason not to go to South Korea. So anyway, I do want to say this one last thing about safety. I remember walking home at like 2 a.m. or something to my apartment, and I was walking through. I kind of lived on like a back alley from a major street that was kind of dimly lit, and so I'm walking home, and I see this little girl, probably like 8 years old, on roller skates, like coming down the road. And in America, North America, United States, my first thought is, where are your parents? What are you doing out at 2 a.m.? You are crazy. Someone's going to come kidnap you. But there, it was kind of normal. It was not a big deal for this kid. I mean, yes, Korean parents want their kids in bed and they want them to be sleeping, and that was kind of weird. But it was not really a safety issue. It wasn't. It blew me away. I always felt really safe in South Korea. I never had a moment where I was like, "Oh, I'm in a sketchy neighborhood." Besides my 2 scooters I owned getting smashed up, but that's another story. Moving on. 6, we kind of covered the food, but let's get back to it. Korean food is delicious and cheap if you're in South Korea, and it's everywhere. I think I ate out more than I stayed in and cooked, and it was sometimes cheaper to eat out than to cook. If you like Korean food, if you like Korean barbecue, which has gotten really popular, you're going to love South Korea because it's everywhere. The food is cheap. There's even more than maybe what you know of, and you're really going to enjoy it. 7, the nightlife. Something is always happening in South Korea. Obviously, Seoul, there was more going on because it's a huge city. But for the most part, South Korea is always up. Now, I moved to a smaller town for my second year there. in Cheonan. And I think the population was like, I don't know, maybe 500,000. I could be wrong. That's what it felt like, at least. Maybe 500,000. So even in this smaller town, it was still pretty lively, and there was stuff open at night that you could go to. So if you're looking for awesome nightlife, really awesome clubs. I was never a club scene person. I've never been that. And actually, in the United States, I don't like going to clubs, but in South Korea, it's a lot of fun. And the club scene, the nightlife, karaoke, they call it noraebang there. It's awesome. So if you're looking for like an awesome nightlife, South Korea is for you. And my final point, and I'll stop here. There's a ton more that I have, but number 8 would be in-country travel is incredibly easy and cheap. Subways, trains, taxis, buses, they're everywhere, and it's all reasonably priced. Except for if you get in a taxi after the subways close at night, which is kind of a scam. They jack their prices up. Or if you take a taxi from Incheon into Seoul. So for all who don't know, you don't actually fly into Seoul when you go to South Korea. You fly into Incheon. And then you got to take a journey into Seoul, which takes like an hour or an hour and a half on the subway, I think. But you can also take a taxi from the airport because they're everywhere, but they don't tell you that it's going to be like $80 or $90 to get you into Seoul. There are buses that you can pay. I don't really remember what I paid. Maybe like $20, maybe less, maybe like $15. Maybe it's even cheaper. I know it's way cheaper than the taxi. And obviously the subway is the cheapest way to go. It just takes the longest. But yeah, if you're flying into South Korea, do not get a taxi into Seoul. It is a long ride, and it's an $80 to $90 trip. So anyway, those are my quick top 8 reasons why I chose South Korea as the country I was going to teach in back in 2011. Obviously, maybe some of this stuff has changed a little bit since then, but I really don't think so. So if you're looking for kind of a first country to step your foot in, to get into the world of ESL in a different country, South Korea is an awesome option for you to consider, and really, in my opinion, should be your first country. So anyway, as always, if you have any questions or anything, feel free to send us a message. We're all over social media. If you can't find us at ESL Spot, go to try typing in the ESL Spot. So anyway, take care, and I'll catch you in the next podcast.